Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It's your host, Danny Dhaiphong. As you can see, I am joined by Scott Ritter and Andrei Martyanov, two good friends of the show. Gentlemen, how are you two doing today? Good to be back with you.
Pleasure.
Great. Everyone, both of these gentlemen are geopolitical analysts. They work very hard. Their work is in the video description where you can find how to follow them. But we're going to get started right away. So Donald Trump has admitted that Russia is winning the war, or has essentially won the war. And this is causing some consternation, actually major consternation within the halls of the Western mainstream media. Here, CNN. As Trump states, Ukraine is losing the war with Russia, officials, anonymous officials, are saying the battlefield situation hasn't changed significantly. And this comes as Europe is scrambling with Zelensky to come up with an alternative peace plan. But I actually want to play a recent report that was given to Vladimir Putin by the general staff, Valery Gerasimov, on what the reality actually is on the battlefield. Here we go.
The operation involved 20 reports.
And for context, everyone, what's actually happening on the battlefield is Russia just took Seversk, liberated it. So we're going to start from there. This is the description.
The operation involved 28 assault groups, with a total strength of 84 troops. Thanks to courageous actions by the troops, my squad fulfilled the task with minimal casualties and is ready to carry on fulfilling the tasks of a special military operation. Congratulations to you and all of your troops, everybody standing next to you and all of your subordinates. You are standing next to the victory part. I congratulate you on your victory. You are doing a great job. Thank you for your service. And now please switch location.
So I needed to play that one, Scott, because that is very much in tune, showing Vladimir Putin's very in tune with how this war or how this conflict, special military operation, actually works. So, Scott, let's start with you. What's actually happening on the battlefield? Why has Donald Trump seemingly admitted that there is a huge Russian advantage here, while Europe and Zelensky are doing the opposite, actually proposing things that changes to a peace plan that already is still very much up for negotiation on the Russian side, but they're trying to change it to make it even worse than it is. So what's the reality? Maybe you could talk about Seversk as well and the situation there to you.
I mean, the reality is Russia's winning the war. I mean, I think we can project that Russia has won the war. It's all over but the dying. And most of the dying going forward will be done by Ukrainians. What's changed? You know, there was a certain group of advisors within the Trump inner circle who in the spring and the summer of this year were telling Donald Trump that Russia was having a hard time, that Russia was losing men by the bushel, that they're running out of equipment, and that their economy was a wreck, their society was on the verge of collapse, and then Trump said, Russia, I'm giving you a chance to live. I'm giving you a chance to come out of this with a little bit of dignity, accept the deal. And the Russians told Trump to pound sand because there's a whole different reality, and the reality is that Russia is dominating the battlefield like a modern battlefield has never been dominated in recent times. So literally a very one-sided fight. The Russian economy, while, taking its hits as any economy would, subjected to 20 tranches of EU sanctions and, American sanctioning include the most recent sanction of Rosneft and Lukoil. The Russian economy is doing fine. I've been to Russia 3 times in the last 4 months. I'm just here to report that Russia's doing all right. This is the reality. There was a period of time where it appeared that Trump was getting more accurate data. And this was in the lead up to the Alaska summit when we saw complete reversal of the Trump approach, where he was threatening Russia with sanctions and crippling sanctions and all this. And then they had their meeting in Alaska, and suddenly Trump is going, no, the Russians are right. We're going to, we don't need to ceasefire. We need to get to the root cause of the conflict, da, 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 da. And after that, you saw a very concerted effort by the Magnificent Seven, those 7 lovely European leaders, and Zelensky coming to the White House and trying to put the pressure on Trump. And I think Alaska reinvigorated people like Keith Kellogg and others who have been promulgating lies and distortions. And they got back into Trump's ears. And suddenly Trump is right back to saying, Russia's weak, losing manpower, etc. There was a phone call between Sergei Lavrov and Marco Rubio. We don't know the details of the phone call because they haven't released the transcripts. The Russians are always diplomatic and circumspect. But apparently Lavrov just reamed Marco Rubio a new one, straight up. Where Rubio was trying to say, hey, you've got to deal with it, Lavrov was like, you've got to deal with the reality. The reality is nothing your president says is true. Everything my president says is the truth. We're winning this war, and we don't care about you anymore. We can't deal with an America that is so far removed from reality as to be ridiculous. We're just going to go ahead and win this damn war. And when that readout was played to Trump, apparently that was a come to Jesus moment. And suddenly you see Keith Kellogg sidelined, and you see Trump taking a completely different approach, one that is reality-based. Trump acknowledges Russia's winning because this is the truth. Once you eliminate Keith Kellogg, factual data can make its way to the president. And the president's now being briefed on the reality that the casualty ratios are skewed in a disproportional fashion in favor of Russia. That, the Ukrainian army is out of manpower, literally out of manpower. They are going to be losing territory at a rate that you won't recognize the map because they don't have anybody left to plug the line. The fall of Severus brought with it more casualties. Read the Russian casualty figures every day in all the different sectors. 1,400 Ukrainians, 2,500 Ukrainians, 1,200 Ukrainians. And you add it all up and you're going, that's like 10,000 guys gone a day. And so, this is unsustainable. So this is the reality they're at. Donald Trump is recognizing this reality, and I think he's reflected. Meanwhile, speaking of people who don't matter anymore, Zelensky and the Europeans live in an alternate universe. They are able to influence the press, hence Jim Sciutto's absolute crap story, which is just made up out of thin air. But this is the job of propagandists right now, to create a perception of Ukraine viability, so that the United States and Europe will continue to support Ukraine. Because once the truth is known, once you find out the reality that this war cannot be won and will not be won no matter what, you tend to stop investing. And that would, of course, be the end of Ukraine overnight. And this is where we're headed right now, a growing recognition on the part of those who supported Ukraine that any further investments will be in vain. Europe is making one last desperate bid to get a hold of Russia's seized assets. That will fail. Europe doesn't have the ability to underwrite the Ukrainian budget that is up for consideration by the Rada. And if there's no money, there's no budget. And if there's no budget, there's no government. And we're looking at societal and political collapse to happen simultaneous with the ongoing military collapse.
Yeah, Andrei, what's your view of the situation? Maybe you can also talk about the significance of Seversk and what it means for Russia's ongoing.
Yeah, Scott pretty much covered it extremely well. I mean, which you would expect from him, actually. So, but I can only add that it was the issue of sending Driscoll and the Secretary of the Army and Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, General George, to Kiev, obviously, to see what is going on. And then suddenly you have Driscoll coming out and saying things which at that time were like, oh my God, they are losing. He went on record with this. And the question is that Mr. Kellogg, Mr. Keane, all those Petraeuses. First, they are incompetent generals. They are so losers. They never won anything in their life. They lost all their wars. And they would be laughed out at the morning briefing of the staff of the separate brigade, independent brigade anyway, in Russian armed forces, as people who are absolutely inadequate. And, well, Mario Naval contacted me, his team, that, oh, do you want to debate, Ben Hodges? I said, oh, with great pleasure. But then, of course, I'm still waiting for the confirmation. Meanwhile, Danny Davis basically stomped on him, for these people are literally, they are genuine articles. They believe that because they're militarily incompetent. They do not understand what is going on in terms of combined arms operation, which, by the way, the latest two issues of Военная мысль, military thought, by Russian Defense Ministry, which is the magazine for the officers and admirals and generals of Russian armed forces. The last two issues, in terms of the development of the strategy and combined arms operations, are absolutely revolutionary. There are a number of the publications there which are, wow, this is the moment. So Scott covered pretty much everything correctly. They have literally no troops anymore to plug in those gaps which appear. And essentially, I'm not going to go into the tactical operational issue of how the real lines of defense are formed now. But the point is that Seversk, and after that, as he stated, Vladimir Putin stated, changed the location. He also came out and said, now on to Slavyansk. And so Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration will be taken. And as Scott correctly pointed out, there is a panic, desperation, absolute desperation and rage, especially among British and French in Europe, because Europe, especially after the publication of the national security strategy, and now today we know that there is a fuller version of it. It states just straight to your face that Europe is done. Simple as that. And the United States doesn't see any perspectives really with Europe. And then, of course, comes this blasphemy from Trump administration, is that we need to establish the strategic stability between the United States and Russia and actually cooperate. Well, what do you know? And then Tucker Carlson today adds the weight to all that with his short video quip, when he said, we are natural allies. Remarkably, Russia, Soviet Union, and in the United States have been allies most of the time of the history of the United States. So this is like, obviously it's too late, and Trump tries to extricate the United States from actually a bunch of the losers. Russians are affording him that. They not allow United States to be their arbiter, but obviously as superpowers behave, they have to provide a certain degree of the, noblesse oblige, so between superpowers, it's different than, for example, Europe, which is not a superpower, and especially when split into separate countries, they are not even on the horizon economically, which the other part of this NSS, National Security Strategy, is like a voucher. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Make no mistake. It's all wishy-washy things, change of the last minute, the views. But C5, Core 5, that was like, wow, finally somebody recognized that there are, these are the largest 5 economies in the world. China, United States, Russia, India, and Japan. Japan is a political thing, but Japan is huge.
Yeah.
So it's like, hello, finally. Hey, I was writing about it now in the second decade about it. This is admission. And so Russians will give, and they're ready to give, the off-ramp for the United States. They will not allow United States to take credit, but they will allow United States off because you have to live with the United States. But Europe is essentially left with keeping the bag, and this bag is stinking, my God, to heavens. So simple as that.
Yeah, well, Scott, it seems like the faster that NATO is collapsing, the more aggressive in rhetoric it gets. The Munich Security Council has just been underway, and here is Mark Rutte making a reference to a war that might spark your interest. Here's what he said.
Conflict is at our door. Russia has brought war back to Europe. And we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured.
So even just that comment, Scott, when we think about World War II, if that's what he's truly referencing, the so-called war between the Soviet Union and parts of Europe, that there was a particular character to that war. But Scott, your reaction to this dynamic of the faster that NATO is collapsing, the more aggressive in rhetoric it gets, and even you mentioned the assets, the attempt to seize assets, etc. Your analysis of this?
I mean, NATO's dug itself into into quite the hole here. When the Soviet Union collapsed, NATO had a chance to do the honorable thing and declare victory and go away, or at least downsize so that it was just purely a European, security framework backed by the United States, but nothing spectacular, not an aggressive military operation. But it didn't. It decided to become a world player. I mean, look at the Partnerships for Peace. There was a period of time where NATO was actively involved in the Maghreb, in North Africa, sending delegations in to try and create partnerships of peace there. In the mid-2000s, I was invited to a NATO summit in Abu Dhabi, where NATO was setting up offices in the Middle East to create partnership for peace there. And more recently, NATO has talked about expanding the Pacific. Why? Because NATO is in search of enemies. NATO needs a justification. And the biggest enemy NATO has, and it's one that they've been focused on since the Soviet Union collapsed, is Russia. You remember not 1 inch eastward, expansion, all that, but that was a lie. They began expanding or working towards expansion immediately, using Russia as the boogeyman. And the more you absorb former Warsaw Pact nations governed by, liberals who have have it out for the Soviet Union, have it out for Russia, the more you radicalize the NATO membership. And that's what's happened. NATO has become a radicalized membership that spent more time focused on, jawing, meaning talking, and less time focused on training and getting ready for a real war. The only nation capable of fighting a real war in NATO today is the United States. No other NATO nation has the capacity to engage in a sustained high intensity ground combat in Europe. And now the United States is talking about the end of NATO. I mean, they've articulated it. Let's just be clear about that. Scott Bessent made it clear that Article 5 is not the sacred obligation that Joe Biden claimed it to be, that if Russia attacks NATO, the United States, he said, might be willing to sell NATO some weapons, but that's it. We're not going to fight for NATO anymore, especially now that we recognize, that NATO's posturing is problematic to peace, that NATO is actively undermining American national security prerogatives by, interfering with the peace process that Trump's trying to negotiate. So, NATO is now having a come to Jesus moment where they have to, come face to face with the reality that in order to survive in an America-free world, because we aren't going to be there for them, they have to build up their militaries, spend a lot of money that they don't have in order to convince the people of these nations who have floundering economies thanks to the actions of the European nations in sanctioning Russia, to convince these people to divert, scarce resources to this military buildup. They have to make Russia to be out of threat. And the way you do that is to talk. The good news is NATO's been on the couch too long. This isn't Mike Tyson in his 20s. This is George Foreman in his 80s. Somebody who once be able to deliver a knockout punch, but today couldn't get off the couch. NATO can't fight. They can't wage a war. They have no capacity to wage a war. And the good news is that they don't have the ability to realistically match their rhetoric with reality. Should they attempt to do that which Rutte and others are saying they must do, they will rapidly collapse their societies. Germany's coming face to face with the reality that if they want to build their army up to the size that they want, they're going to have mandatory conscription. And it's tough to have mandatory conscription in a nation where, in a recent poll, only 16% of the male population said they'd be willing to fight and die to defend Germany from an invasion. Imagine now how low that percentage goes when Germany is talking about aggressive operations against Russia. And since I mentioned the word aggressive, I just want to point out, too, another problem with NATO is that Germany is rapidly compelling the world to take a look at Article 53 of the United Nations Charter. Article 53 designates Germany and Japan and Italy as enemy states. An enemy state is a nation that waged war against the other members of the United Nations. And the interesting thing is normally there's only two ways a nation can justify war legally. One is under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. If you're attacked, you get to defend yourself. And two is if the Security Council passes a resolution under Article 7 or Chapter 7 that authorizes use military force. But then there's Article 53. And Article 53 says that when an enemy state, and Germany is an enemy state, engages in aggressive policies, which literally they're doing by definition, all other states can attack them at any time without going to the Security Council. Russia right now has a legal green light to take Germany off the map. And people say, well, Scott, come on, that's an old, aged thing. It doesn't apply anymore. Ask the Chinese, because the Chinese ambassador to Japan just published a public letter where he reminded the Japanese that they are subject to Article 53 and the Chinese haven't forgotten. And I'm telling you right now, the Russians haven't forgotten either. NATO can't exist because the actions of NATO are incompatible with international law, incompatible with the Charter of the United Nations, incompatible with peace. I said it when Mark Rutte became the Secretary General. I said he will be the last Secretary General of NATO. And I believe this to be the case. I don't see this rotting corpse of an organization surviving much longer.
Yeah. And Andre, Scott mentioned Japan and Germany. It's really a full circle moment, right? Like you have Merz and you have Takaichi. They're playing this very aggressive role, and yet we know that without the United States, neither of them are very much of anything at all. But
NATO is the United States. NATO is the United States. And again, Lord Ismay, okay, he's British. Okay, he was British. I mean, he was the first Secretary General. We need NATO to keep us in, Germany down, Russians out. Okay, everything essentially happened as was the main purpose essentially of NATO. And so it's run its course. But obviously the Chinese foreign ministry letter about what Scott just described about the enemy states. I mean, it's a shocker, but yes, truth is China is asserting itself also in the area, in the region, and nothing could be done about it, despite the fact that Japan remains a very, very advanced economy, and they have pretty advanced military. But then again, in technological paradigm changed. When we talk about Germany, first, it's been deindustrialized at an astonishing rate. Many people do not understand that even October and even 2024 and October 2025, if you look attentively at the Car and Driver, similarly, Car and Driver magazine, one of the most respectable publications in terms of the automotive industry and auto markets, out of 25 bestsellers in the United States, not a single German car, not a single. It wasn't the case even 15 years ago. There would have been absolutely some kind of the German brand, and not necessarily BMW or Mercedes, present as one of the bestsellers. They're gone. They lost their capability to make good cars. And the same goes for many other things. And as the result, they lost effectively their chemical industry, which was the foundation of the German economy. And when you look attentively at those statements from, let's say, Rheinmetall, okay, oh, we're going to produce this on this. Yeah, you can produce 2.5 tanks maybe within a year. Many people do not understand, obviously, that in the end, energy decides everything. And in terms of energy markets, we have the situation with the Middle East, which is still volatile. United States producing enough for itself and probably selling something for a good profit into the East Asia. Then you have Russia. And when you look at this, well, we come back to the square one. There are countries which decide today the fate of the world. And as I was on record for years, only 3 countries today in the last 10 years can decide the fate of the world, with India kind of getting there. But it's a long way. It's a separate issue. That's United States, Russia, and China. How these guys settle things down, how they kind of, developed their whatever, or return to some kind of the international law sensibilities, at least, because we know that even UN Charter have been violated so many times that, but that's the reality. And I want to reiterate again, Europe is not there. It's over. And that comes not only with the actually military ramifications. Europe doesn't have really serious armies. Okay, Bundeswehr is a joke. United Kingdom doesn't have army functionally at all. It cannot put together even single brigade. And French, if you remove the heritage of Charles de Gaulle, who left France with the nuclear deterrent, their army, their armed forces are also, it's not serious, okay? And so, what can I say? We live in the new reality. And the fact that finally Trump got the obviously real numbers and real explanation from real professionals, which are still remaining in Pentagon somewhere. Evidently, Driscoll's mission to Kiev had effect. And we have what is happening today. We have the hysteria, high-pitched hysteria in the establishment media, and all over Europe and obviously in the United States, but they cannot change reality, because in the end, was Joe Enlai, I believe, who stated, maybe Joe Enlai or somebody else out of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China, he stated that he rephrased basically the famous quip, one-liner by Clausewitz, that war is the continuation of the policy by other means. He stated that, diplomacy is the continuation of the war by other means. And we have this flip now, because military victory is already there. And actually, the war effectively was won in 2023 of the famed so-called counteroffensive. The only thing we had was the convulsion around Kursk. But now the math is not there and technology is not there. They do not have as much as people talk about those drones and things like that. Yeah, it's good, but the reality of the battlefield remains as it was before, in the sense that artillery continues to deliver those, huge punches, and as the result, armed forces of Ukraine, together with all those volunteers, is pretty much hollow force now. And as many Russian commanders, some of them I know personally, state, sometimes you just go in and they really don't shoot back anymore. First, they very often run out of ammunition. They sit in those cellars, those basements, wait for their fate. Some of them shoot back, but you don't want to deal with the Russian stormtroopers. So it just makes them really angry. And as a result, that's what we have. A week ago, there was this all this upbeat reports on the from the obviously Kiev propaganda that Gulai-Pole, which is a very symbolic and significant town. Gulai-Pole, we're gonna be defending it. There will be no operational encirclement. Well, guess what? Literally 24 hours later, as the Russians say, they appear on the eastern, not outskirts, inside eastern part of Gulai-Pole and say, "Hey, hello, we're here." And now we have what we already observed for the last 2 years, basically wiping out, mopping up whatever the force there, and they cannot withdraw anything anymore because it's closed now. Gulai-Pole is essentially also in the operational encirclement right now, but again, we need to wait and see, because information coming from the line of combat contact is kind of lagging. You cannot call the guy, say, "Hey, you tell me what," but. And as my friend, he said, I'm not going to tell you from where. He said one of the women, she housed, obviously they spread all over the cities and towns there. She housed 11, last month, she housed 11 Ukrainian troops. By the end of the, starting of November, by the end of November, 10 were killed or ran away. One was left. So that's pretty much tells you everything. Yeah, many people do not talk about the appalling number of the desertions in armed forces of Ukraine. They are in hundreds of thousands.
Wow. Yeah. Well, now I think it might be appropriate to round off the hour on the what happened on the high seas. So the United States, as you both have mentioned, the national security strategy has a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, and that appears to be heating up. Off the coast of Venezuela, a Venezuelan tanker that was heading to Cuba with about $60 million US dollars roughly of oil. I'll just put up the video as I get your assessment of this, Scott. Venezuela blasted this move, saying that they will not allow a foreign power to attempt to seize from the Venezuela people what belongs to them from historical and constitutional rights, and condemned the act. And it wasn't the first time that this has been raised, as Donald Trump in 2024 said that a conflict with Venezuela was about the oil. And here was Trump's reaction to reporters asking about this act of piracy during a press conference.
In the siege of this tanker, what happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it was going? Was it going
follow
to
it.
China?
Get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going to
But
Cuba?
we're gonna. I assume we're gonna keep the oil.
So, Scott, to you, your reaction to this and your analysis based on all that's been happening, because this comes within the context of the Hegseth war crimes, a questioning probe, wherever it is now in that saga, as well as, of course, the threat of regime change in Venezuela by the United States. Your assessment?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's just call what happened by its real name. It's piracy. So the United States is now a pirate nation. Yay. Because there's no legal justification for what the United States did. Even under U.S. law, it's, they say that it was FBI agents that carried out this raid as though this was some sort of law enforcement action. It's an act of piracy, straight up. And it feeds into a broader narrative of the illegality of the American posture, the illegality of the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. It's fundamentally at odds with international law, but Trump doesn't care. But more critically, much of what the United States is doing and perhaps is planning to do vis-a-vis Venezuela and its neighbors is a violation of American law and the law of war. We had this September 2nd incident where we struck a boat after Pete Hegseth apparently gave an order to kill them all. And remember, people say, come on, Scott, did he really say it? Guys, you do listen to him, don't you? I mean, you did read or hear his statement before the 800 officers at Quantico about maximum lethality. We don't do silly rules of engagement anymore. No. Those silly rules of engagement out the window. We're about maximum lethality. And then, he has given subsequent speeches where he basically says our goal is to kill everybody. And so it's not unrealistic to believe, as some people have said, that he gave orders that matched the president's own rhetoric. The president has been on record talking about killing them all. I just want to remind people I voted for this crowd. Who gives a damn? No one cares what you voted for. You can't vote for illegality. No amount of votes can change the fact that what's being done is illegal. For those who say they're drug traffickers, we got a lot of drug traffickers here in the United States. They drive up and down the I-95 corridor, and there's other corridors out there. So you're saying that the State Department if they get a good tip off that there's cocaine in that Porsche, you just gun them down. Don't even have to try and stop them. Just shoot them up. And if they come crawling out of the car, waving their hands, just kill them, execute them, walk up and pop them in the head because they're drug dealers. They don't have any rights. Do you understand the stupidity of your argument right now? Also, you need to understand that under the Department of Defense Law Warfare Manual, shipwreck status is quite clearly defined. And those two survivors were shipwrecked in every meaning of the word. And we murdered them. We killed them. That's a violation of the law of war. It's illegal to give an order to take no prisoners. That's a violation. And it's illegal to double tap survivors of shipwrecks. They're out of the fight. And so what's happened here is that the military is starting to ask questions. The commander of Southern Command, an admiral who, normally it's a 3-year position, less than a year out, I heard someone say, I disagree on drug boats. I don't really give a rat's ass what you disagree with because your stupidity shines through everything you do. Know the law before you open your mouth. I don't care what your opinion is. No one cares what your opinion is. Nobody in the military cares what your opinion is because your opinion doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the law, and the law is quite clear. And what's happened here is that the president is telling the military to do things that are patently illegal, and it's causing a lot of problems in the military. Admiral Bradley's in a lot of trouble right now because he violated the law of war. He should be court-martialed. And just so you understand, this isn't a minor violation. This isn't a technicality. The United States Congress has passed a War Crimes Act, I think in 1996. And it clearly states in the War Crimes Act that any major or grave violation of the Geneva Conventions, the international law of war, that is the premise of the Department of Defense Law of War Manual. So any violation, gross violation, is punishable by life imprisonment or death. We're not playing games here. This is how serious this should be taken. So for a simple civilian to sit and say, I voted for this, I don't care about drug boats, kill them all. No one really cares what you think. The military has to do what is required by law. And right now we have a lot of military people saying, we're not comfortable with this. And so even though Pete Hegseth has announced the initiation of Operation, I think it's a Southern Spear, the largest military operation in the Caribbean in years, the Gerald Ford and everything else is out there. Notice they're not shooting up as many boats as they used to. Notice they're not doing much of anything because the military is starting to question everything. All the things, for instance, we can read into this. You got to ask yourself why Bradley was the guy running the operation. Why is JSOC, because he was the head of the Joint Special Operations Command, why is JSOC running this operation? Because nobody else would. But another reason why is the sources intelligence methods that are used. The Navy SEALs have a squadron called Black Squadron. It's their intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance squadron. You notice that the president and everybody else says, we know what's on that boat. There's no question about it. I believe them. I believe they know exactly what's on that boat because I believe Black Squadron is on the ground in Venezuela doing their job. And they are getting the hard intelligence about who's on that boat, what's on that boat. I'm not debating, I, for one, am not somebody running out there going, they're fishing boats, they're fishing boats. No, I think they're drug boats. I think they're drug boats. We know the names of the people on board, and we know the content because we have photographs of it. Black Squadron probably has taken samples of the drugs, so they have irrefutable evidence that there is narcotic material there. Photographs of the people on it, trackers on the boat, and then they fly it out there, and the Navy, forget the name of the drone they use, but that drone picks it up. It has a laser designator, and they designate the boat, and a helicopter or some other platform fires a standoff hellfire and comes in and blows the boat up. Simple, except you can't kill these people. They've committed no crime worthy of that. Even though you have that intelligence on its own doesn't allow you to kill. That intelligence allows you to detain. There still is due process that has to occur under law. And what the military's been told to do is violate due process, go straight in, get to the kill chain. And even when you kill, to kill them all. These are war crimes. And the military is starting to say, we're not so thrilled about half this stuff. And I think you're seeing a chilling impact on the U.S. military's ability to carry out Donald Trump's plans regarding Venezuela. That doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that I think they're going to have to take a different tact because at the end of the day, the majority of the military people take their oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, very seriously. They've all been schooled on the law of war, and they all understand their obligations when confronted with a patently illegal order. And now, I think now that somebody like Bradley is being put under the spotlight, more and more military people are saying, time out. I need a JAG review in writing, JAG being the judge advocate. I need a JAG review in writing, and then I'm going to voice my disagreement in writing. Now you've got a record, and no commander wants to deal with that kind of nonsense. And so there's a chilling impact right now on what's going on militarily against Venezuela.
Yeah, great points. And Andre, there's also the Venezuelan side too. The longer this goes on, we see the Venezuela is very much so. So a lot of people in Venezuela, I can't say how many, but it seems like a lot of people are not enthusiastic about the possibility of U.S. intervention. And the more that this happens, the seizure of this tanker, the drug boats, whether there's drugs on them or not, the fact that they're being bombed, and there is this contravention of international law. And then you have reports like this, Andre, where something like this seized tanker is just normal, according to the think tankistan mouthpieces of the neocons.
A tanker. How could this escalate the conflict with Venezuela?
Well, we've had sanctions on Venezuelan oil since the first Trump administration. And
Biden kept them.
Kept them.
Yeah.
So to me, this is absolutely normal. I mean,
seizing an oil tanker?
Yeah. We've been seizing Iranian oil tankers in the past. We also, according to the law that I've read, that oil is up for forfeiture. So we could keep that. We've kept Iranian oil in the past. So I actually think that this is less controversial in terms of law and sanctions and what has been, disputed or not disputed. Like, I think this is actually a pretty, check the box case. Mm-hmm. Now, what will this mean in terms of escalation? What is he going to do? What is Maduro going to do? Is he going to stay?
It's just totally normal, Andre. Your reaction to this and anything else you want to add to this development? Oh, sorry. Hold on.
And now I am, how to put it politely, I spoke about it for the last almost 4 years. Most people, especially the chief editors and people who basically tailor the programs in establishment media, both in the United States and Western Europe, are war criminals. And same goes for the most of the think tankdom. For example, as this lady, they are neocons, they are warmongers. Many of them have to be behind bars with their crimes against humanity and simple war crimes. They basically, they encourage them. They constantly, push that agenda. So in this case, they are no better than the Goebbelsonian propaganda ministry. And you know what happened to those people? Very many of them. They have been executed. So, and when I say this, I'm not saying this lightly. Just today, Quincy Institute, this is another think tank. Although they pretend to be the, for America first and all that, and responsible statecraft, but they published a very interesting piece that another think tank, such as the Institute for the Study of War, they really don't study war there. They don't understand it. When you look attentively at who those people are and their board, this is purely Kagan operation. Kimberly Kagan, it's one of those Mencken's moron with a PhD, and people like Keane and Petraeus are on the board. Suddenly they were not accused. They reported that they were basically changing maps of the operation in Ukraine, for example, and they were betting things. in the, this betting, whatever casino there, because they wanted to earn money there for that. So this is everything you need to know about those people. They are ideological prostitutes, and some of them are fanatics. And when Scott described the situation from the U.S. military point of view so well that I have nothing really to add there. He knows this subject way better than me. But the point is, neocons are not good at war. They're not good at technology. These are basically people who were run through the degree meals, humanities-based, degree meals in Ivy League, and they do not understand modern war. They don't understand, for example, what could possibly be done with those 20 Su-30 MK2s, MK1s, I'm sorry, which are older but still very modern fighters, which are capable of carrying all kinds of those things like KH-31. Things like that. If God forbids something happens, there will be, granted that United States will probably try to bomb the crap out of of Venezuela. But the problem is there is no chance in hell there could be any real serious ground force on the ground. And the only thing which probably will come down to is trying to regime change, which Scott correctly stated. I'm sure there's a truckload of people from the CIA and all kinds of the special forces operating there. But do not forget, there, as you correctly stated, even people who don't like Maduro, and there's certainly some categories of people who do not like Maduro, they do not listen to this newly coined idiot, four-wheel drive bitch, let's put it this way, who is supposedly alternative to Maduro. They don't like it either, her either. And I can only basically report or quote Doug McGregor, and he knows way more than me in the area, that actually there is around 100,000 of the Colombian militants basically parked on the border, and they are ready to go in the moment anything happens big time, especially with the force, some kind of the amphibious operation or whatever they plan. I don't know. And so it's not going to be a stroll in the park, considering the fact that, by the way, Venezuela is 3 times larger in territory than Vietnam. And it has the nightmarish terrain, and absolutely nightmarish. And so, mountains, gigantic mountains, all those bizarre, jungles, all those rivers and things of this nature. This is not an easy operation. It's not Iraq. And who knows what is happening there? There may be some other forces not aligned with the United States on the ground. I don't know. But I can only, that's my quip on this matter, because Scott obviously knows way more than me on this matter. And so I think he covered it up pretty well.
Well, Scott, given what you were saying earlier about how Hegseth's big quandary with the illegality of the boat strikes, and then the seized tanker, all of this is creating a kind of momentum. But how then is this actually going to affect the regime change operation? Because on the Venezuelan side, we see a lot of enthusiasm against this kind of thing, and we also see time kind of going by. There was a lot of escalations, and then this happened. This series of events you described earlier happened, and now it's unclear how it's going to affect the operation. How do you see it affecting the operation, and what actually can be done in this moment? Because when I think of a bombing campaign of a country that already has a lot of migrants coming to the United States, I think more are going to come. There's going to be more displacement, more chaos if there's a more full-on U.S. military intervention. But what's your opinion and assessment of all this?
My opinion is we shouldn't be doing any of this with Venezuela. Maduro has come out and been quite clear that he's willing to work with the United States to ensure that Venezuelan oil will be, primarily extracted, exploited by American based oil companies. I mean, so there it is. We could get all oil, but this is political. This is about Marco Rubio, who's since 2016 wanted to carry out a regime change operation in order to live up to his anti-communist legacy as anti-Castro Cuban American. That's what this is about. This is about Donald Trump being sold a bill of goods by Rubio and others about the necessity of Fortress America, the Trump corollary. Again, you name it after Trump, that gives him feeds the narcissistic soul. And so we're headed in this direction. The U.S. military, though, again, just I want to point out, Venezuela is a very large country. To carry out a strategic air campaign designed to, eliminate the Maduro government's viability would take many weeks. Venezuela is bigger than Iraq. We did a strategic air campaign against Iraq that, required us to fly thousands of sorties, over a sustained period of time. There were many aircraft carriers, and there were dedicated air wings deployed to, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, etc. We've got, a couple squadrons of F-35s and, an embarked air wing on the Gerald Ford. That ain't enough aircraft, guys, to carry out a strategic air campaign. And we don't have enough cruise missiles either to do the kind of sustained strike that would be needed to, using air power alone to achieve an outcome. So the force structure that's been assembled is one that can provide a targeted strike package similar to what we did during Operation Desert Fox in December of 1998, which was a very limited duration, 72 hours, limited scope attack, taking out the security infrastructure around Saddam Hussein's Special Republican Guard, some Republican Guard, intelligence, Interior Ministry. All of these were struck by American assets in the hopes that these divisions down in Kut that the CIA had made contact with would leave their barracks and march into Baghdad through the unprotected South and take care of Saddam. But the generals that the CIA had thought they had on the payroll weren't in fact on the payroll, and the divisions didn't move and nothing happened. I bring this up to point out that what's really going on in Venezuela, the real regime change, is being done by the CIA, not by the U.S. military. U.S. military does the optical things on the periphery to generate headlines. The CIA's job is to stay out of the headlines. But, people need to remember that the CIA has a very large and robust paramilitary wing that has become even bigger and more robust because of the 20 years of global war on terror. They ran secret armies in Afghanistan. We just saw the residual impact of that when one of the Zero Fours from Kandahar, the Afghan secret commandos that fought for the CIA, went out and shot two National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., killing one and severely wounding the second. The CIA runs secret armies. That's what they do. And I can guarantee you that the CIA is assembling a secret army right now on the periphery of Venezuela, maybe even secret armies. In 1998, I needed to do a testing inspection of presidential facilities, and we needed a lot of people on short notice. And the CIA suddenly produced an Argentinian special operations unit that suddenly were made available to come and do what I wanted them to do. It's like, wait a minute. Normally we have to write letters to the Argentinian government, the whole process. Nope, CIA just up and pop, gave me a dozen Argentinian commandos. I also got a dozen Polish commandos too. Tells you something about the CIA relationship with the Polish government. But the CIA has these relationships, and they're able to mobilize mercenary forces or rapidly. The CIA has connectivity with the Venezuelan opposition. And I know everybody's talking about, how Maduro has the support of the people. He doesn't have the support of all the people, though. There is a percentage of Venezuelans who are against him, and the CIA is exploiting them and hoping that, when the time comes, when their forces make a move, the conventional military can suppress the Venezuelan security services, neutralize Maduro, and facilitate the rapid seizure of power by these CIA forces. And that's the direction we're heading. I think we're moving for a major covert operation run by the CIA to immediately remove Maduro from power. The timing of that, I don't know. I'm not in the CIA. I'm just telling you that I know enough about how the CIA operates, having seen it firsthand, working with the paramilitaries in Iraq to do regime change operations against Saddam Hussein. Patterns repeat. They have a mode of operation that goes back to Afghanistan, which goes back to Laos, which goes back to Vietnam, which goes back to every other place in the world that they've done these things. This is what they do, and they're doing it right now in Venezuela. And I will give them a 100% chance of taking Maduro out. 100% chance. What happens after they take him out, don't know. All bets are off. But there's a 100% certainty that when they pull the trigger, Maduro will be dead or captured.
Yeah, Andrei, your thoughts as we get to the hour here.
No, I mean, I generally agree with what Scott says. The only thing which is the, so to speak, a joker here, they say, oh, there are Russians on the ground. There are Russians on the ground there too. And believe me, they're pretty damn good, actually. So this is not as easy. But yeah, in terms of their strategy and in terms of how they probably, this is the covert operation, absolutely. Absolutely. This is what is happening most likely on the ground. And yes, the issue is very simple. And Scott stated, and I said, yeah, there are divisions in Venezuela. But again, who knows? Very difficult to say.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, Scott, I know you have to run, so I will see you again soon. We'll close up here.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Andrei. Good
Bye.
talking to you.
Bye-bye. All right, Andrei, just the last few minutes, I just wanted to talk about how, to close up here, certainly there are divisions. The CIA, I think Scott's 100% right. They're going to do this and try to do this. I don't know about the success rate. Who knows? I mean,
it's difficult to say.
But,
again, do not forget.
I was just going to say, in terms of the question to you, is the fallout. I mean, we're already seeing how difficult it is to build up the case for this. But what about the fallout, where you do have, basically the poor, working people? They're with Maduro. That's a lot of the population. And then you have like a third. You have this very wealthy population, very anti the government, but the fallout could be very devastating. Your
civil war. The fallout could be the civil war, and that will be pretty much. It's gonna spoil all those plans to have actually development of the oil for the United States, which Maduro, as Scott correctly stated, Maduro essentially agreed that, hey, we can let you do thing, nothing wrong with that. But the critical point here, which Scott made the emphasis, and it also has a lot to do with Ukraine. It's obviously this cabana boy for Miriam Adelson, Marco Rubio. He is not anti-communist family, just his uncle, as is known, was the actually drug dealer. So he is a lot
narco Rubio, we call him.
Yeah. So I mean, the guy, first, he's a lawyer. He is nothing more than, he's not strategist. He doesn't know anything about military. He was the wussy with the silver spoon, born in silver spoon, and he was obviously running the errands for Miriam Adelson and all kinds of neocons. So he is the ideologue primarily, and he wants to establish himself as somebody he is not. He's a boy. Okay, but yes, there are all those ramifications of which also Scott spoke about, legality of things and covert operation. Yes, but we'll have to wait and see. But again, let's imagine they succeed. What's after that? There's a lot of weapons there. And I mean a lot. The population is armed there. What's going to happen? Civil war is going to happen. What's going to happen if the civil war continues and you have people who love nothing more than to kill Americans and kill people who, cooperate with Americans? And as I already mentioned, even Doug McGregor stated there is about 100,000 guys from Colombia who would like to settle some scores, including with CIA. So it's a very complex situation, and I would love to be there. I would like to be there anyway in the middle. So the ramifications and consequences of removing Maduro by whatever means could be catastrophic for both Venezuela. And then again, as I already stated, will they go and do another Vietnam stint?
Can Trump handle that?
So no, the United States is not equipped to handle this. It doesn't have resources. That's the point. Scott correctly stated the only thing they can do is limited, traditional thing, hurl everything United States Navy and Air Force has. And this is like what? United States, by different accounts right now, has about 2,500 available Block 4 and Block 5 CLAMS, Tomahawk land attack missiles. That's not a lot. It's actually very little for those people who do not understand what is going on. Just to give you understanding, famous attack in Syria near Damascus at this building, which was actually 109 Tomahawks and JASSMs. Most of them have been shut down. Hello. So this already a significant part of it. So if people think that it could be sustained, and Scott is absolutely correct, it cannot be sustained. It could be a limited thing, couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and that's it. United States literally begins to run out of munition. But then again, here comes this thing which nobody wants to constantly remember. And this is Prosperity Guardian, which was a catastrophe for the US Navy when they tried to do the same thing with Houthis. And let me tell you, Houthis are much easier targets. You know why? Because Yemen is primarily sand and sandy mountains and dunes and things of this nature. It's a desert, essentially. Venezuela, oh my God. You suddenly have some issues with the even target designation, because it's, Vietnam all over. They can dig in, and you will have to work hard to even identify, and then develop firing solution on any target which is within jungles or crevices of those, incredible mountains there, So, yeah, it's it's a very difficult proposition. And as a result, could we observe the civil war in Venezuela? Likely. How likely? I don't know. I'm not into the percentages.
Yeah. Well, when you think about too, it also not just the terrain, and then plus, if you talk about Caracas, like you can't wipe that out completely because the people that you want to be running the country, the wealthy, the opposition, whoever, they need Caracas. It can't be wiped out. You can't just wipe out the Caracas city. You can't do that. So it's not so basic or simple.
No, it's not simple at all. It's much more complex, again, as I already stated, than Vietnam. And again, keep in mind, Maduro have been distributing weapons among population for the last several months. They are armed to the hilt there, So, and I'm talking about, it's not some, 9mm, handgun. These guys are carrying AK-47s and AK-74s, RPGs and things of this nature. So, and if the substance hits the fan there, I won't be. I would like to be in the place of their opposition, which of course the United States wants to install, because there will be many people coming after that. And after their families,
they know where they live. I mean, they've been trying to get power, and I think this is the thing for me, Andrei. As we can close here, your last reaction to this is that for me, the question is essentially: is Venezuela more like Iran, or is it more like Syria? In the sense that, in terms of resilience, with Syria, we saw how it was degraded in all of this. With Iran, of course, there's not a comparison so much because Venezuela doesn't have the ballistic missile systems, etc., the same way. But in terms of the resilience, if we look at over the years since 1990, 8, 9, since Hugo Chavez up until now, We've seen a lot of other Latin American governments not last like this one has. I mean, this government has lasted quite a while. People have continued to vote this government back in, stood by it through coups and sanctions, etc. That to me is a dynamic that says, well, it's more, this situation could be more like Iran in the sense that really difficult to topple versus Syria, where it was like waited out, and then boom, the operation to topple it happened. But what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, you are correct. Obviously, we have to keep in mind that obviously majority of population, how large a majority we can only speculate, supports Maduro. And again, as I already stated, there are indications that there are Russians on the ground there. And believe me, they are pretty good. So it's not like it's easy to do. And again, we have to keep in mind what it's going to do to a stance of the United States. If Maduro falls, my God, it's very difficult. And again, you cannot even compare. Listen, let's put it this way. These guys there, they're not Arab militaries. You know, they are people with a little, rather significantly different culture, to put it mildly, in terms of their capabilities to be trained as the organized force. And so we have to wait and see. And again, you're not going to get anything out of me because I'm not the connoisseur of the theater there. But I know one thing, God forbids, if a couple of those, good Lord, Su-30s pop up out of nowhere carrying KH-31s with the range of about, they have the latest version of a range of about 280 kilometers and Mach 3.5 to 4, they're not going to be intercepted. And the salvo, single salvo, and you lose a destroyer or you have aircraft carrier hit, that's not going to be good. I mean, let's put it this way.
Yeah, no, it might be part of the calculations on why things are slowly developing rather than rapidly.
Yeah.
Andrei, it was great to be with you. Always, of course, great to be with Scott. Both of your YouTube channels are in the video description. All the places to support this channel are in the video description as well. Patreon, Substack, and much more. Be sure to hit the like button before you go. All 3,637 of you who have not, at any portion of you who have not hit the like button, do that before you go, because that will help boost both Andrei and Scott's voice on this program today in YouTube's algorithm. It's very much appreciated. But until next time, everybody, we're going to head out together. Take care. Have a good rest of your evening, day, wherever you are. And I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.